Can you really be yourself in a relationship? Or do you agree when you don't agree? Or maybe you say you're fine when you're not really fine. Maybe you're quieter, easier, less complicated. And you may not even notice you are editing yourself. Today I am with Guv Bains. He is an authenticity coach, and we are here together exploring why that happens and to understand from his view what is actually going on.
Good.
Welcome to Modern
Thank you.
Relationships
Thank you
with
so much.
Rita.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, before we talk about relationships, what do you actually mean about authenticity?
Authenticity for me is about living a life based on values that you have that serve your well-being. Now, if I just break it down a bit more, when we're born into families, we go to schools, we're sort of conditioned by society, we have loads of expectations. And even if I take it back to birth, even when we're born, the idea of us comes from our parents. There's loads of expectations around the family, religion, culture, and then we're born. And we're born with that expectation, that conditioning. That's not to say conditioning is bad, but it's really understanding whether that conditioning, not just from your parents, but from society and now social media, does that serve your well-being going into the future? When I talk about well-being, what does well-being mean? It's about how you're progressing through life. Are you sleeping well? Are you generally feeling okay? You're not stressed. You're not worried about things. And those expectations come from society, and they're not necessarily always yours. So you're ticking boxes that are not necessarily yours. And again, that's not to say those boxes are wrong. They might be wrong for you. And that's what you have to really understand. And then I use well-being as the benchmark. Let's look at your values. Let's look at where they came from. Let's look at what you want. And authenticity is that journey. It's not just that one-stop shop. It's a continuous understanding of yourself, your beliefs, where your beliefs come from, and then going forward, are they going to serve your well-being?
So the things that you just mentioned, like the conditioning and the beliefs, how do they make it harder for someone to genuinely know what they want?
We're talking about someone who might be struggling with feeling empty. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm living in this real nice house and I've got everything, but I still feel empty. And this is where the awareness comes in. So it's all about awareness. And the way I look at it, it's about three things. It's the 3 A's, I call it. The first thing is awareness. It's having that awareness of something is not right. And then the second part is agency. So this is where the hard work happens. This is really understanding, going back to why those conditions were in the first place, why those beliefs were in there. Okay, they might be from society, they might be from my parents, but again, the question is, do they serve me in my life?
And sorry to cut you, you mentioned quite a few times the serving you. Could you be specific? What does that actually mean, serving you or not serving?
Serving you, I would put into the context of well-being. How sustainable your well-being is. So again, I use the word sustainable because we're always going to have ups and downs. We're always going to go through phases where it's like going to the gym. You do your exercise and then you recover. Now, exercising can be uncomfortable, and it's just like growth in life is uncomfortable. So, and that's why I'm trying to be really clear to say, well-being is not about being happy all the time. But it has to be sustainable. So over a long period of time, you need to be feeling that you're growing. But ultimately, again, the baseline is how are you feeling emotionally? How are you feling psychologically? How are you feeling physically?
So overall well-being.
Overall, yeah, exactly. But then, again, with that conditioning, a lot of it is and can be associated with guilt and shame. And I think that's what I find one of the biggest challenges is when you've been brought up in a certain environment. I'm not talking about family either. I'm just talking about societal as well, where people equate money to happiness and all that sort of stuff. And it's that questioning that can make you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. But so after the awareness, which is absolutely critical, you have your agency where you're questioning, you're asking yourself these questions. And again, it's not even about asking yourself questions. You've got therapists, you've got coaches, you've got life coaches you can sit down and talk to. And then it comes to the last one, which is action. And that's putting that into action. So it could be a change of environment, a change of job, kicking someone out, could be anything. But ultimately, that's how I look at it.
All right. So how would you recognize or help someone to recognize that they are living their life through these conditioned beliefs or inherited beliefs rather than something that they actually chose?
That's a really good question. And again, it comes back down to the 3 A's: awareness, agency, and action. So this is really about and using well-being as the baseline. So if I'm talking to someone and they've got inherited beliefs and everything is perfect in their life, whether it's inherited, whether it's chosen, it makes no difference.
So we come back to the overall well-being.
Well-being, yeah.
That's okay,
the person's in a good place, and this is why I want to, again, reiterate. Just because someone's got inherited beliefs, and the thing is, we've all got inherited beliefs. But for a lot of people, if they're sat there and they're not happy about things in their life, not happy about their jobs, could be a relationship, then one of the questions could be, well, how you see yourself. And once you start breaking that down, you really start understanding where those beliefs, whether those beliefs are inherited or whether it's something we've chosen. And majority of the time, it's to say we're chosen. And I'd just like to throw another story in there. And it's about, it's a really nice little story. I think it's from like a Buddhist monk, and it really goes to show our state of mind. So it's a really religious guy, and he follows God, and he's out in the sea somewhere, and this guy's always been praying to God. He always feels like he's going to look after him, and the ship's in a storm and it starts sinking. So he prays to God and he says, listen, help me, I'm stuck, I'm going to drown. 2 minutes later, a boat comes. And the guy, the sailor's trying to pick him out of the water, and he's like, no, don't worry about it, God's going to help me. And they're like, dude, you're going to drown. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Ship goes, 2 minutes later, another one comes, and exactly the same thing happens. And he's like, no, don't worry about it, God's going to save me. Bang, he's straight in there. So unfortunately, really sad story, like my plant,
he drowns.
He's not dead. The plant is not dead, but
Not
he
yet.
is on his way. Yeah, I'm fixing it.
On his way.
I'm fixing it. So he gets
He's
to
waiting
heaven.
for the lifeboat.
Yeah. So he gets to heaven, and he sees God, and he's like, "Dude, what happened? Like, you were meant to save me." And God was like, "Dude, I already sent you 2 ships, and you sent them away." Now, the whole idea of that story is a lot of the time this is how we go through life. We're head down. We've got these beliefs, and we just don't really question them. Things happen in life. Opportunities always go by, but yet our heads are in looking at the floor, and whatever we learned before, whatever you learn from society, whatever you learn on social media, that becomes it. And all I am saying is, use the 3 A's. You have the awareness, start questioning, and then if it serves you, brilliant. If it doesn't, then drop it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Lovely story too.
Thank you.
Okay, what about relationships now? Somebody who is single might come across really confident and knows their values, who they are in this world, and the well-being. They are very, very fine within themselves. Then they enter into a relationship, and gradually they might start to edit themselves and become something that they don't even recognize. What's going on there? What do you think?
First of all, I think the most important thing to remember is don't get into a relationship. If your well-being is really good and you're single, stay single. There's no point just jumping in and complicating your life. Don't do it. Just stay single.
What if you fall in love?
Yeah, if you fall in love, Sorry, what was the question? It was like, how do you stop?
So you notice yourself in relationships. So how do you hold on to the authentic self while you actually you are with someone and you want to keep them? So in order to keep them, people often start to edit themselves or become less of themselves because of the fear of losing the person.
Yeah, and I think you've just nailed it there. And I think it's one of the most important things to really think about is when you enter a relationship, you're going to be entering a relationship with a lot of expectations, a lot of your own conditioning, and if they are comfortable with themselves, if they're confident with themselves, and they know, again, when it comes to well-being, what serves them in their life. These are my boundaries. This is what I can accept. This is what I can't accept. Then I think that's a totally different conversation to then someone who comes into a relationship. And again, they might be feeling like confident and stuff, but if they don't have those boundaries, those values, and something very interesting you said is having that fear of losing someone. Now that's completely different to going into a relationship to grow with someone. And again, I like to distinguish both of them because I don't think there's anything wrong with changing yourself for another person, but it has to come from a particular place. If you're coming from a place of fear of losing, then I think it's something that person has to look at themselves. But growing as a person is a natural process, and growing in a relationship is a natural process as well. So changing yourself is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're doing it and then you like you said, you edit yourself, and then your well-being starts struggling, you start getting anxious, like you said the F word, fear, you start using that, then that's not really, really productive. And that should be a time where that person needs to sit down and really figure out why that's happening.
Well, how do you work through around noticing yourself editing?
If I start crying, then I know it's a problem.
That might be a problem. Crying is a good thing, though.
It is a good,
you're showing your emotion.
It is a good thing, yeah.
It's a message and signal to you that there is a problem.
Yeah. No, exactly. What's your baseline look like? How much sleep I'm getting? I'm not changing my eating habits, because again, when you start feeling a bit sad, you might start eating more. But it's just making sure that you understand when you're in a good place what that baseline looks like. So if someone's in a relationship and they see that baseline change, and that's where you have to start asking the questions. It doesn't mean that the relationship's gone to complete bits.
Baseline affected, it's done now.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying like as soon as it's impacted your well-being, get out of there, run. It just means there's something that you need to figure out. Right? Just figure out. But it's over a period of time, and that's the most important thing to remember. It's the long periods of stress, it's the long periods of anxiety, it's the long periods of not knowing what's really going on. That's the things that really impact you as well. So that's where I always like to have that baseline, always monitor it, always monitoring how I'm feeling. And I say things like journaling and write things down. That's really powerful as well, because it just puts your thoughts down onto paper and to what's going on.
So you have the awareness, then you have the agency, but then what about the action? Because let's say that you've been with someone for years and you are deeply connected to that person, and you start to notice yourself being impacted. Well, how do you move on to the action with the fear of not wanting to lose that person either?
So again, I just think for me, everything centers around well-being.
Your well-being.
That's the most important thing. But going into a relationship should enhance it over the long term, and it has to be sustainable. Is this longer term? Is this relationship going to serve my well-being? And the chances are, if it's impacting your well-being, there's a big chance it's going to be impacting their well-being as well.
So what would you say to someone who is aware and is going through this process of noticing that it's impacting their baseline for a longer period of time? How would you guide that person to process that, and they're not able to work it through with their partner? How would you work with that person as an authenticity coach?
So it's about sitting down with them, and then it'll be just a load of questions about them, how they're feeling day to day. One of the things I always look at is emotions. So it's really to understand and articulate how that person is feeling. Now, if there's a lot of, we talked about fear, shame, it's really understanding where that's coming from, and it's following that through. And I think we touched upon it earlier around attachment theory and stuff, and a lot of it is going to be related to how they were brought up, and then in that case, it's going in and working in that direction.
Would you work in that field?
I would.
You would do a referral.
I would do referral. I would.
Okay.
I would pass that over.
So if someone listening here realizes that they haven't noticed how much they are editing, how would you help them to become curious about it?
What is the intention of that change or that editing? So, for example, you're in a relationship and your partner says to you, do you know what? Sometimes you just get really defensive. Mm-hmm. You get really, really defensive, and maybe you need to do something about that. Now, if that person takes that on, that's growth. Mm-hmm. The growth has come from that relationship. Mm. Whatever you change for that person, whatever you've learnt in that relationship, I'd rather use the word learnt in that relationship. Would you still do that thing if your partner wasn't there?
That's nice.
So then it becomes a part of a learning for you as well. So the thing I would say is, be objective about what you're doing, about what you're editing, what you're looking to change. Is it helping with your growth? Be a little bit selfish. Is it helping with your growth? Is it serving you long term? Will it serve you long term? If it does, then that's absolutely fine. And but if not, and it's impacting you, and you feel like, no, I'm not growing, this is actually pushing me back, then that's the whole part of the whole awareness. And then you do your agency part, which is, do I want to continue this? Do I not, in terms of the behaviors or editing? And then you action it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Good.
Does it make sense to you? So if this has served you very well and it has resonated, I would love to hear your comments, and please subscribe. And you hear more relational psychology and some of my guests' explorations every week on YouTube.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.